Hey folks, and welcome to a new series here on Held Captive Media called Why Did This Get Canceled?, in which we dig into different TV shows that have either large cult followings or no following at all, and we beg the question, why would they take this off the air, and was it good that they did? So let's talk today about Mission Hill. Mission Hill is an adult animated sitcom that premiered on the WB September 24th, 1999, but aired its last episode on July 16th, 2000 after being canceled. It was created by former Simpsons producers Bill Oakley and Josh Weinstein. They were longtime writing partners since writing together in St. Albans School in Washington, D.C., and the reason they left The Simpsons was that they felt that though The Simpsons was great, it wildly lacked representation of people that were the age of 30 to 13. Seeing the both sizable yet relatable demo being missed, they went into production on a show to appeal to that exact audience. Before they knew it, WB had ordered 13 episodes of their new show, Mission Hill. So then it begs the question, why did it get canceled? Why did talented writers that essentially ran The Simpsons get canceled on their very first show? Let's get into it. Yeah. So, I can talk about the show at length, but right now we're just going to review the pilot with spoilers for the pilot in total. You guys totally cannot watch it for free on YouTube. Totally can't. And I definitely will not link the description, the playlist of all the episodes. I would never do that. Just saying. But Zane, I totally didn't send you the link to the free pilot episode on YouTube to watch for this review. But regardless, what do you think of the review? The pilot. So I got myself all. I'm trying to play Mr. Lawyer here. Go ahead. So
I would say my favorite part about the pilot is the fact that Italian leather sofa is the intro. Like I love cake. So when that intro music started, I'm like, I know this song, and then it kind of went a little bit, and I'm like, okay, I know this song. Yeah, no, we're good. And like the intro scene where he's talking to the boss, and the boss starts talking about like the lady with big breasts that he's gonna go on a date with. I was like, oh hey, is that a callback to that? Like, mint. And then from there, it was downhill.
So I got a little bit about the pilot. So the pilot also sets up the show's overall premise. Andy French is an aspiring cartoonist who moves to the big city of Mission Hill to follow his dreams while reluctantly selling waterbeds and living with his two roommates, Posey and Jim. And though they are very different, all three happily coexist until one day Andy is forced to let his teenage egghead brother, Kevin, move in with him. The show ends up following the lives of these four characters and their experiences of living in Mission Hill. So the pilot also is the setup for the entire rest of the show, and the show just gathers around those four characters: Andy, his brother, and his two roommates. And what did you think about, like, what did you not like about the introduction of the show? So like the brother moves in. What part did you hate about it?
There were parts that I was like, okay, this is kind of fun. This is interesting. Like the setup and everything. One of the really good scenes was when they're like, he's walking down the street or whatever. He stops, he grabs like a newspaper, and he's just kind of strolling. The music is kind of bopping, and then all of a sudden, like the air conditioner falls down. And like, hey, do you want to buy an air conditioner? I'm good, thanks. And he keeps on stepping, and I'm like, that was genuinely funny. And then you got like the gay couple fighting in the elevator or whatever, and like a lot of that.
They're
stuff
recurring
was
characters too. They're in a lot of the show.
He also the like more masculine of the two gay characters. He shows up later in the party scene where he's like homo's a hurtful word.
Homo's an offensive term, and if you continue to use it, I'll have to crush you.
Yeah, like fucking cut me up. Like some of it was very funny and landed super well, but then there was also some stuff like he's like when the boss is like, well, I gotta go home early because I got a hot date. And it's like, oh, hey, that's kind of funny. And then like he goes to the bathroom or whatever, and he's like, well, and I just hear like the most awful Foley work for engaging the like forklift, putting it there. And then he's like, work's over. And then you hear click, 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 click for all of them walking out. And it was so goofy to me. Also the dialogue with the
that's a weird. So you don't like the fact that they had bad Foley work? Is that what you're saying?
There was just a couple of things,
or is it what? No, I'm actually asking. I'm not trying to I'm not trying to dispute it. Do you not like the fact that they did the bit they did where he moved the desks in front of the bathroom door? Or did you not like the Foley work that was used in that scene?
So I feel like as far as like, it's a lot of the Foley work and then like some of the jokes that just really didn't land. They almost felt like a lot of other sitcom jokes, like stuff that you'd hear on Friends or That 70s Show, where it's like, it's a dumb joke. It's a not good joke. But then they add that laugh track and it kind of like, oh, okay, it softens the blow a little bit. There wasn't a laugh track with this. So a lot of their like it felt like your traditional.
So
90s
it just
sitcom.
wasn't your humor.
Not even so much. There were bits of the humor that I actually like legitimately laughed at, like I found pretty funny, but there were just like these weird little spots where it's like those traditional sitcom things when you translate it into animation and then you don't add like a laugh track or something to give you kind of that desire for that, like, oh hey, yeah, this thing is like, it's not funny, it's sitcom funny. And there were a few when they weren't doing the sitcom humor, I found like the more gritty moments like just a little bit more funny. But then you've got like the more slapstick dumb stuff, like when he jumps out of his door on the second floor and then crashes into the table and he's like, when did we move the couch? Oh, we did that last week. Don't you remember? Oh yeah. And it was just like,
I thought that was funny. I don't know, but I get it. Hey, like you said, you're not into it.
It felt just very dry, and it just didn't quite like. It felt like something that if that exact scene happened on Friends, you would hear that laugh track, and you'd be like, okay, yeah, I guess that was kind of funny, yeah. But when it didn't have that, it was like, okay, I can see how that's funny, and I guess, yeah, sure, I'll give it to it.
I feel like it's kind of like how it was with The Simpsons, where, and this is just my take, that there would always be like jokes, you know, like there's always some amount of humor thrown in, even though every scene isn't like laugh out loud. I feel like a lot of the really dry humor in this is just kind of to make you go like, nice.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like you get those larger responses out of the overall stories and absurdities themselves, like just, you know, Kevin being the Grubermeister in general was pretty fucking wild, and that was kind of the more ridiculous end of it. But
I did find myself kind of liking the way that the story came all together at the end. There were definitely some fucking problematic bits during the like inner city like school scene where I'm like, oh, that's fucking problematic. Like it
was the 90s.
Yeah,
I feel like every show is doing this.
Yeah.
Like you look at Beavis and Butthead now, there's some shit in there.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like I was fully willing to kind of be like, okay, yeah, I'll give that a pass. It felt very much,
you know,
like,
one of the critiques of the show is that people found it to be very far left and liberal. That's actually a critique of the show.
Oh yeah, no, I
just want to point that out as we're reviewing the problematic stuff. Is that it, oddly enough at the time was parted the other way. So,
and the fact that some of the like recurring not main characters, but like secondary characters is a gay couple, like, and it's all based on the inner city, and it's kind of like all like when they were walking down the street, you saw the dude with the mohawk and the nose ring,
and they're going to ska concerts and shit like that. Yeah,
but yeah, it's stuff like that I'm like I could definitely tell like the writers were very liberal people.
Yeah, they were going for that category of people that The Simpsons just like didn't represent.
Looking back on it with 20, 30 years down the road from when it was initially put out, I was like, oh, that's an issue that wasn't an issue in the day, but now it's an issue.
It's an issue.
Yeah. So
big
like
old issue.
If they ever decided like, oh, we want to kind of bring this back, like that would be one of those things where it's like, we got to do some working on this one.
They won't.
No.
So my take is that, in my opinion, out of the 13 episodes that they produced, the pilot's one of the weaker episodes, just because as any show, you're kind of finding the grooves of things. You're figuring out what your show actually is. Like if you watch like the first season of The Simpsons, it's really quite bad.
Yeah.
Even if you like the rest of it, or you know, whatever show you want to compare it to, tons of stuff. That first season, those first couple of episodes, they're kind of tough. But even then, I watch this and I just think of the shows at the time, and I just like, I don't understand the discrepancy of like why people think that this one merited being canceled, why WB didn't keep this show on, because there's a few things about it. It didn't have high ratings at first, but no show ever does. But it had a big cult following almost instantly amongst college students, stuff like that, and they even sort of approached that when they re-released it on Cartoon Network. They released it during what's called Stoner Block. And I don't know. I think the show has a lot of charm. I think that certain things age with it really poorly, mainly the things with the dog. Yeah. I feel like just their interpretation of the dog,
which another bit of
is probably
awful Foley work when the mom goes to hit the dog with a spoon. And you're like,
yeah, I feel like the bad Foley work is a bit. I really don't. Yeah. I don't necessarily agree with that criticism, but you're free to have it. But
it just every time, because I get into the show a little bit, and then some just really weird Foley work happened, and it was like, that was strange. I'm like, there's gotta be I guess it was late 90s, early aughts, so maybe they didn't have they had stuff in the back.
I mean, it was Warner Bros. WB. Yeah. I mean, they totally could have had decent Foley work, I think, if they wanted. I really do feel like this was a matter of choice. Mm-hmm. Being that the guy making the cartoons, he kind of based it slightly on himself, and it's about a cartoonist, and I think that all of that plays into how the show is seen and developed. I feel like I had a love for cartoons within the show.
One of the things that I did kind of love about, or I guess not so much love, but I was nostalgic for it, is just that era where this was definitely a part of that era where they just made really ugly characters.
Yeah, I feel like that's I mean, all the characters' eyes are yellow. They all look
awkwardly, mm-hmm. their ass area, basically from the belly button down to the upper leg, is just a big circle, and they're it was just so goofy to look at, and I was just like, all right, that was a thing that just happened for a long time. Yeah, there's still things Rick and Morty isn't pretty animation. There's other shows now that don't have they don't make pretty characters or anything. It's not anime style. There are still some of that ugly adult animation, but this was definitely the Oblongs come to mind.
Yeah. It was intentional. Yeah. It's got this vibe about it where it's a little bit, maybe it's a little bit grittier in a sense mm-hmm. too. Maybe some I don't know, it was some realism in a sense. I think that it was going for awkward shapes and not pretty people. So yeah, I liked that aspect of it. I don't mind the artistic stuff as much. No. I do hate the voice actor for Kevin. I want him to go away. Yeah. I cannot handle the quintessential annoying nerd voice sometimes. Yeah. It gets better after that episode though, so at least that changes. So I think we're pretty good on the pilot, right? Is there anything else you wanted to say about the pilot? Because I want to just tell you about the rest of the show, and we can put the timestamp in so people know to if they want to watch more of it.
So I would say I'm planning on potentially going, depending on our talk coming up here soon, I might end up going back. You were saying the pilot's the weakest. I was all right with the pilot, so I'll see if I move on with the rest of the show. But I will say, if you like Friends, How I Met Your Mother, stuff like that, and then also stuff in that early aughts Adult Swim style, the Oblongs, a little bit better than Squidbillies.
A lot better. What the fuck? It's a lot better than Squidbillies was fucking tragic.
Yeah.
Bro. What are you talking about?
That same kind of what's the one where it's all the kids, and it's drawn super ugly, and they make videos.
Magic School Bus.
No, they it was on Adult Swim. The kid
home videos.
Yeah, if you let.
It's not as good. Home Videos is a classic.
Home Videos is great, but no, it's kind of it feels like it fits somewhere in those kind of that general headspace. So I'd say probably go ahead, take a look at it. Again, it's totally not on YouTube to watch.
Totally free. Not every single episode, including episode 2, which was banned on television in the United States. Totally is not on YouTube in the playlist that I'm going to link in the description. That would never happen.
Also, a little bit of like music debate. Some people get really offended if you call cake ska, and they did it a couple of times because like there was
Cake is ska. What are people so upset about?
It's ska.
What's wrong with being ska?
Ska is defined by horns and the drum on the offbeat. But I know that I was talking with one of the people in my acting troupe, and I was like, oh, like Cake is one of my, like, I love Cake. They're like ska adjacent. They're like, Cake is not ska. Like, ska is blah, blah, blah. And they went through on like a whole dissertation. They're like a music major or something. But it just made me laugh because
makes me want to call Landon and ask, like, hey, dude, what are your thoughts on Cake?
So
he'll think I'm talking about somebody's ass, but whatever.
Put it in the comments. Do you consider Cake ska?
Put it in the comments. Do you think we're talking about ass? Anyway, we'll be right back. We'll go over. Well, actually, give me the rating of the pilot. What did you rate it? I want to know. For me, the pilot's kind of weak in comparison to the rest of the show. It's like a 7 out of 10, though. Like, when I watch it, I can see the merit. I can see, like, oh, these are characters that I can relate to. These are not like your standard adult animation characters where it's like, oh, it's a dad and a family that he treats poorly. Isn't this comedy? Like, that's not, for once, that's not the premise of the show. It's about 20-somethings, and that's something that I can relate to.
So the first half of the show, I was like, man, fuck this. I was gonna rate it something like a 4.
That's
and then
harsh.
Like I said, I was not vibing. Like the only thing
Cake
that I
was playing, and you're like, this is shit.
The only thing that I was enjoying was the fact that Cake was so heavily promoted in it, and I was like, that's neat. But then like the end kind of circles it back around after the party, after kind of the little heartwarming scene or whatever. Like I'd go ahead, I'd bump it up to maybe like a 6.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let's we'll come back, talk about the overall show, and we'll get into why it was canceled.
Right on.
Okay, guys, we're here to talk about Mission Hill in its totality. First, I just want to go over some of the stuff that happened with its production. So, obviously, the show was produced for 13 episodes. The first episode, and the first couple episodes, I should say, didn't really do that well with ratings, but it did have a cult following. The other issue they had was just WB not wanting to keep that animation cycle like around. They just didn't want to be producing adult animation in that way. Yeah. And then there was a third thing. At the exact same time that this show came out, MTV put out an adult animation about a bunch of young 20-somethings living in a big city, in pretty much the exact same cartoon show. It's not as good. I can't even remember what it's called right now. Somebody could look it up, but that was one of the other main reasons. So it was really canceled because didn't have enough time to figure out what it was going to be. The people who ordered it decided they didn't want animation anyway. And then another show, which heard about its production, came out and swept from right underneath it. Basically, you know, like how people make like Jurassic Dynamos and shit, or like Jurassic Theme Park right before Jurassic Park comes out.
Yeah.
MTV pulled one of those when they heard about Mission Hill and was like, oh, we can do that.
Yeah.
So that was a big part of it. And then it ran on Cartoon Network, but at the time Cartoon Network wasn't actually like buying shows. They weren't going to pick up a show and like order new episodes of it. So they aired it during its stoner block, and then once it was out of episodes, I think they kept it in rotation for a while. But
I remember seeing it. I've like as soon as I saw it, I was like, I've never seen this before, and then it started to play, and I'm like, memory unlocked. Yeah. It's the same as like whenever somebody shows me like a picture of real monsters, or like one of those just like off the wall, like the Ren and Stimpy show, like just some of the like the more like obscure ones that just kind of like faded into the background. Where it's like, I'm like, oh shit, right, I do know this.
But WB and Cartoon Network stopped airing. First, Cartoon Network never aired it on Adult Swim, and then WB stopped airing after one airing. The second episode, do you want to know what the second episode's about?
What is the second episode about?
Okay, so Kevin, you remember the younger brother?
Yeah.
He's got his boys, the boys his homies that he
nerd
made.
Crew, yeah.
Yeah, so his nerd crew, his friend from the nerd crew, not the big, not the tall one, but the other one. The Asian one. Yeah. I was going to avoid that, but yeah. Their family owns a convenience store. That's why I was avoiding it. And so at one point, Kevin in or earlier part of the episode's giving Andy shit about looking at porn, which is like definitely none of his business and he should fuck off.
Yeah.
But at a later point, he goes to see his friend, and his friend's like, "Hey, can you watch the shop real fast?" So Kevin's watching the convenience store, and he comes across some porn. Okay, some pornographos. He goes in the bathroom, starts jerking off to said porn. While he's doing that, the hoodlum kids from school start stealing from the convenience store. And when they do, they knock over a bunch of shopping racks and stuff in front of the bathroom door after they see Kevin jerking off in there to, like, I don't know, fuck with him, I guess. Or maybe it was an accident, but they trap him inside. And so Kevin knows the police are coming, and he's afraid of being caught with porn as a minor. So he starts burning the porn magazine, and he accidentally burns down the entire convenience store. He then blames in court the hoodlum guys for burning down the store, for which they will go to prison for. Now, this is all set to a B plot where his roommate Jim went to Japan and came back and brought back something called hot shorts, which is little booty shorts with a picture of an animated animal on the back of them. And Andy thinks it's the worst trend ever, but everybody thinks it's so cool. So Andy starts wearing them. He wears them in court to, like, convince his brother, like, you need to tell the court that, like, this isn't true. And so he gave, like, this really impassioned speech while he had, like, a fucking bird on his ass. And the episode ends with Kevin being honest, those dudes not going to prison, you know, everybody basically, everything's fine. Andy walks out and notices that everybody and their grandma wearing those shorts now, and Jim's like, those aren't even fucking cool anymore, and that's the end of the episode.
What?
Banned from television.
I'm thrown by, like, nobody at any point in time while they were writing that episode was like, hey guys, that's not good. Like, that's just not even funny. Like, what?
You should watch it.
Okay.
It's kind of funny. It's horrible. It's horrible. It's horrible. But it's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. I thought it was a great episode. The other notable episode I want to mention, if we don't mention any others, at the same time that this happened with MTV, the writers were pissed because they knew that this MTV show was coming out. Mm-hmm. So they decided to write what I would call a diss episode or a diss track in animation form, where they made an episode where the real world came to Mission Hill. And Andy got on the real world through some insane means. And, like, you saw, like, how fucked up MTV was behind the scenes. And it's just a giant middle finger episode to MTV. And it was really fucking funny.
I love that.
It's quite good. And the reason and the way you find out is that Kevin is basically, like, not respecting Andy's personal space. And he finds some tapes in his room, and then he ends up finding out that these are the real world tapes that, like, of the episodes that never premiered where Andy was in the show. Yeah. And so they all watch it. Everybody who lives in the building all watch it together in their living room, and Andy comes home to them, like, halfway through it and starts freaking out because, like, his girlfriend's there, his brother's seeing it, everyone's seeing all this shit that they were never supposed to see. It's a fucking insane episode. Yeah. It's so good. It's so good. The show is wild, but the thing about the show as a whole, I think it's important to mention that even though it is a comedy and it definitely tries to go for laughs, whether they be subtle and soft laughs, you know, drier humor or, like, more over the top, there's actually a lot of really very real shit in the show, like the relationship between him and his brother. Also Kevin, you know, dealing with the stress of the SATs as well as not getting into the school that he wanted to go to, like, really devastating world shit that they put in these episodes. And I think the comedy and the seriousness actually kind of blends together in a way that you don't really see that much.
That's what I said that I liked about, like, the end of the first episode was when he's going through, and
that's,
like,
the strength of the whole show.
Yeah, that's kind of what drew me back into where I was like, at first I was like, I don't give a shit about this show at all, and then I finished that first episode and I'm like, I might end up watching a few more. I'm not entirely sure. We watch a lot of stuff for this show.
We do. That's really what it boils down to.
It is
probably
hard to like circle back to things that like I still haven't even seen She-Hulk because I'm watching so many other random things.
Oh, dude.
And it's like, so it's one of those things where going through and like watching additional stuff, it is kind of like, is this really worth my time? And the end of that the first episode, I was like, I might have to circle back to this because this is at least like I do love a lot of that, like those old like 90s, early aughts.
And what's crazy is like I think it still reigns true as far as comedy goes. There's not a lot of good comedy of 20 somethings, like a lot of good conventional comedy anyway. It isn't a thing. I think because most of the time during these years of your life, you're supposed to be aspirational and accomplishing a lot.
Well, and it's also, life is so, like, me and Lacey were talking with her sister, actually, about just, like, we're like, life's fucking hard through your 20s.
Yeah.
Like, nothing makes sense. You're just trying to figure shit out. You're like, what do I do? Like, you're desperately trying to find your path forward. And I feel like it's a lot easier to write shit for like 16 to 18-year-olds, like, or the
family man,
40s,
you know, or so
you've got your shit like
the
Rick and
workplace
Morty,
comedy,
which is like the high school humor. Then you've got your stuff like The Simpsons, which is like the old man humor. It's not a lot of that. You're right. It's not that a lot of that demographic from that like 18 to 30 where it just kind of gets left out because it's such a weird period in your life. You're trying to figure shit out.
And also, like, I'm not afraid to say this because, like, I think my political views are out there because I have a literal political podcast. But I just think that there's also, like, there's not a lot of representation of far left anything in media, especially at that point in time. Like, I think it was cool to be mean to minorities and to be a misogynist back then. Like, that was what comedy was. Like making fun of women at their, you know, like, and I just feel like the best part about this comedy is like, yes, some of the depictions are problematic now, but really this comedy isn't making any mean swings at people who can't take the hit. You know, every butt of a joke is generally at the expense of a situation or a rich white person, which, like, boohoo. So I don't know. I think that's the other part I really enjoyed about it is that it just shows you that, like, comedy doesn't have to be so destructive. Like, you can think what you want about the show and whatever you want about Andy French as a character, but I love the fact that at the end of the day, the show's goal is entirely self-deprecation, and it's not mean-spirited. I don't know. Maybe that's silly to say or point out, but I'm a fan of comedy, and the number one thing I notice out of most comedy is that a lot of the times it's at the expense of somebody else and it's mean-spirited. And I really appreciated that even back then there was some stuff out there that wasn't like, hey, let's like I'm not trying to shit on The Simpsons, but like Apu is fucked up. Like, you know what I mean? There's fucked up shit in a lot of media. Yeah. And I don't know. I dug the fact that this wasn't that.
Well, like, in the first 5 minutes, you get the gay characters who are just like...
They're just making out in the elevator.
They're just making out in the elevator. And I was like, I had to, like, circle back, and I'm like, when the fuck did this show come out? Like, that's some shit that, like, I did not expect to see on there, because at that time, like, I remember because the early aughts, we were in, like, elementary school, middle school, like, imagining seeing something like that, it was like... I didn't even know, like, what gay was until I was
and then it makes you question, like, what do you mean you got canceled for being too liberal? You know what I mean? Producers, I'm starting to think a thing. Yeah. But, you know, I obviously can't back that up with any proof. But I'm just saying it's interesting. Yeah, guys, I mean, I could talk more about the episodes, but I don't know, maybe you're going to dive into them. Maybe you guys will dive into them. This is a cool piece of lost media. I recommend people go watch the show. Like I said, it's totally not free on YouTube, so like that's definitely not the place to check it out. And like I don't know. It's a bit of a time machine in itself too. Like if you love content from that period, it is so steeped in the early 2000s that if it was made today, people would be like, "This is overhanded." This is too much like the early
a ska bar.
Yeah, they're like, "This is a little much," and it's like, "No, this was genuine. This was at the time."
I was like, "Oh yeah, this is because like I think the link that I found for." Definitely not on YouTube or whatever.
Yeah, totally never been on YouTube.
Yeah, showed it was like uploaded 10 years ago. And I was like, oh, 10 years? That's 2012. Like, this is a little, like, is this supposed to be? I'm like, nobody was going to ska shows in 2012, right?
Oh, that's right. That's why you asked me when it was made when you got here. You literally had no clue. I love that. Well, does that affect your opinion, knowing how old it is?
Yeah, a little bit, because it does. It feels a lot more.
It's like I wouldn't go after Daria for their fucking Foley work. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Guys, let us know what you think of Mission Hill. Are you a big Mission Hill fan? Did you find this video simply because of that? Are you intrigued by what we said and you want to check it out? Do you think we're just a bunch of liberal weirdos and you don't want to listen to us anymore? Let us know down in the comments below. And make sure to like and subscribe. Check out Zane. He may be Twitches. Check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Logan Tyler, where I indeed have a political podcast with political activist and paraplegic and best friend Jessica Van Hook. Shout out. Thanks, guys.